Plant weaponry used in sexual selection. As we learned earlier in the semester, sexual selection is a type of natural selection arising through preference by one sex for certain characteristics in individuals of the other sex. Bears compete with each other by fighting and showing their strength, while many birds compete by showing off their feathers. And humans tend to compete by showing off and fighting. While this is very common in animals, is sexual selection common in plant species? This experiment, performed by Dr. Andrea Cocucci, observes whether horns on Pollinaria of milkweeds help the plant physically compete for fertilization by decreasing the probability concatenation, or becoming intertwined. As shown, milkweed flowers have 5 sepals. The 5 limbs together are called the corona. Within the coronas are slender items known as horns. Horns are thought to prevent concatenation in plants. On the bottom of the flower, you can see the pollinarium gland. Here is a magnified image of the gland. Connected to the gland are 2 pollinia, which are granular masses of pollen. Milkweed produced by hooking sacs of pollinia to birds, insects, and other pollinators, which then are dropped into other flowers to finalize pollination. Here is an example of the horned pollinaria found in South American milkweed that Dr. Andrea Cocucci observed in her experiment. Cocucci hypothesized that concatenation may result in an interference between proximal and distal pollinaria, and that features of non-catenation pollinaria might be due to defense mechanisms such as the horns. The methods used to carry out this experiment were to find if concatenation affected probability of reproduction, to find out if presence of horns was associated with ability or prevention to concatenate, to remove horns from certain pollinarias using a toothpick, and to compare the ability of concatenation against pollinarium that still had horns. The graph shows both observed blue and hypothesized orange pollination of frequencies. It shows that interference or concatenation leads to a decrease in reproductive success. It does this by analyzing and comparing the reproductive probability of the second pollinaria after the donation of the first pollination with interference I and without interference L. The results of that experiment were that concatenation does prevent reproductive performance, and horns on pollinaria do prevent concatenation. When horns are removed from milkweed or other species that have these horns, concatenation occurs again. So why is this important, and how does it relate back to class? Sexual selection is one of the driving forces of evolution. As Darwin discovered, certain traits are imperative to reproductive success. Possession of these qualities can lead to increased fitness of an individual. Although sexual selection isn't as common in plants, this study can lead to more research in plants and understanding how and why certain species have evolved.